welcome to our viewers to the post-election wrap-up edition of Life and Figures. We have a privilege of Tulani joining us for this episode, and Benjamin's going to run us through our list of discussion points. Thanks for joining us again.
And welcome Tulani. Tulani is our partner as well in crime in this thing, and welcome to our episode 2 of LifeandFigures Talkshow. So our main discussion points for today will be our thoughts on election results, how is the current GNU different to that of 1994, just a bit of historical context, and the likelihood of GNU working for the greater good and benefit of the economy and its citizens, and the implications of GNU on policy decision-making processes. How will that likely to be? And how did markets react initially to the GNU? Are we seeing a bit of optimism to that? And a bit of interest rates, how we are seeing with the US elections coming and the divergence to the global monetary policy consensus across the globe, and what South Africa is likely to do. And by markets, I mean we'll talk about the rands, the JSE, and
Capital markets.
The capital markets. And so thank you for tuning in, and thank you for the positive feedback we've seen with the first talk show. Tulani, you want to say hi to the viewers as well?
Hi everyone, my name is Tulani, and as Gustavo said, I'm part of the team. In terms of my background, I come from the economics and financial economics background, and in terms of my career, I started my career in the research department of one of the government institutions, and currently I'm in the banking sector. More specifically in transactional banking under trade and working capital. And I'm glad to offer you my insights on the economics which affects our daily lives.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Yeah. Are we gonna shoot straight to it then?
Yeah, let's get into it.
So, what we have seen with the recent election results, there's been a lot of media coverage regarding that, and what we have seen is it was monumental, and we've reached a landmark in terms of where we are now, where we have seen the ANC lose its grip on power and their long-standing dominance since democracy, which is about 30 years, being taken away, and we are in a position whereby key challenges has affected that. We've seen, the failure to tackle corruption, the failure to address inflation, or the overall economic recovery post-COVID. We have seen the overall decaying of the public infrastructure. We have seen, low economic growth. What I want, even 1% growth, it's hard. It's a hard target to reach. Yeah. And then we've seen lawlessness taking in as well, like KZN unrest and all these riots threatening our economy, and then overall, it led to public dissatisfaction, and that was pretty much evident in the election results. And you cannot blame the people for voting the way they did if they were dissatisfied. They need to look elsewhere with the hope that the new government hopefully will serve them. And we are here now at this monumental stage where we are seeing a government of national unity, and which is. It's a bit, what can you say? What you're saying, the introduction.
It's an evolutionary period now.
Yeah,
it's shifting gears in our old democratic history.
And we're having more stakeholders now having a voice in government than we are seeing that political shift from a dominant system being shifted away now, whereby we are having more voices into.
From a liberation party having control over now to the next phase. So I think it shows South Africa's democracy is a lot more mature than any other democracy in South Africa. In Africa in general. The fact that the ANC was willing to negotiate a government of national unity, almost, accepting defeat that they are not the government anymore. So there are definitely positives. Me personally, I did not expect it to be so efficient and peaceful. I honestly thought KZN with the MK, IFP, ANC, the fact that the People's War, the IFP and ANC, that didn't come back. It's actually very positive. We can take a lot of positives from the way that these results have been digested.
So you guys don't see any political unrest in the KZN, considering that the MK party, which was quite dominant, as much as they couldn't get to in the provincial, they couldn't get to the 50% plus 1% majority. You don't see any unrest, that considering that they are not in any way in government from a provincial perspective. Is it too early to tell, or you still maintain your stance on this being peaceful?
No, I think for me it's too early to tell, because we see that the MK went to the court to declare the elections where they say they are invalid. So they went to the court, so it's still early to tell. In terms of the ANC losing its majority, it was inevitable. Everyone knew that they were going to lose their majority. But what's surprising is them not choosing a side between the pro-business DA and the other side, which is the EFF and the MK party. So I think they made a good choice by not picking a side. From both.
For not opting for a coalition government, rather.
Yeah.
Okay.
By introducing the GNU, I think that's the good move in terms of them.
Yeah, in terms of approach, yes, I get that. It's a good move, because if you're to say, I'm not going to work with the DA, but I've got MK and EFF to take me that up. And then, but rather than they opted for a more inclusive approach to say all parties are open to come and we negotiate and see where we can reach compromises, or where we can make compromises and reach a common ground.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, I think, even though as much as other parties, like your MK and EFF, they said, no, we are not willing to work with these certain people within the GNU, then I don't know how that will be, and how will that work for the people that entrusted them with their votes, because now in government they are not going to be heard. Their voices are not going to be heard, because those votes, as much as they are currency in negotiations, but you also need to put that which you've promised the people to try and make it heard in government, but now you've decided not to go into government based on certain political ideologies. So I think at certain times we need to relax a bit, and also maybe afford the opportunity and afford the voice of the people who voted for you in government to be heard, as much as it might not amount to anything. But I guess we cannot deny the people that, but if the people are happy with it, you cannot force someone to, if you open the door, you cannot force someone to enter.
Yeah.
If they feel that it's a democratic country, we are in democracy, so you cannot force someone to.
I feel like the fact that the ANC was willing to negotiate this government of national unity really shows their fragile position that they are now. And like you said, they kind of have to find the middle ground between the DA and the IFP's more free market ideologies versus the more leftist ideologies. Even though ANC is, they have leftist leaning ideologies, they kind of had to move more to the center now. So I just think the opposition, the dominance of the opposition from the DA mustn't be too strong. They mustn't rock the boat too much to push the ANC in line to the rest of the leftist policy. So on a national level, I feel like it might be a bit more of a to and fro the whole time. So I think the best place where South Africa can benefit from this government of national unity is more on your municipal level and your provincial level. And that means by driving the efficiencies on the lower municipal levels, and reining in the municipal debt, reining in the state debt. That's the most important thing, because our state debt, if you include the state-owned entities debt, is, you know, it's knocking on the door of breaching above 90%.
Yeah.
That's way too high, especially given that our government debt costs
Yeah.
are running, you know, north of 10%. The US, for example, they have their state debt to GDP is above 100%.
Yeah.
But look at the rate that they can lend this money to. They can lend at around 4-5%. But our debt costs a lot more, and if the debt costs aren't reined in, then, you know, that's obviously the massive risk. So hopefully, I think the base case scenario will be if you start reining in the municipal debt.
So my problem with the new GNU is that how will be the policy formulation be like? Because we know that the DA is pro Israel and the Western world, and the INC is pro BRICS and Palestine. So in terms of the policies, how will it affect the GNU?
So it goes without saying that from a policy perspective, I mean, the rate at which new policies will be implemented, it might be impacted. Like it's on a headwind, because now you've got more voices contributing to that. You are no longer in majority, right? So you're no longer in majority, and you may have people within the GNU that might not be agreeing to that. So hence, whereby the pace at which policies will be implemented, new policies will be implemented, is going to be impacted. Because there's going to be a lot of debating and talking points, and more that being brought up by diversity of ideologies within the GNU. So I see the pace being impacted, but from the current policy perspective, I think because they managed to compromise on certain things, like we have seen with the DA was against the BEE, for instance, was against NSFAS, for instance, maybe land reforms, for instance, but for them to go into government with the ANC, with the current and with the national, they've softened up a bit, and also with the ANC also softening up and being flexible again on the liberation ideologies as well. And I think in a way it signaled confidence in the private sector that, you know, they are making hard compromises. And the moment someone makes hard compromises in any relationship, you could see the willingness to make something work.
Yeah.
So I think what we've seen with the markets, and of which we're going to touch a bit on that on a later stage, the markets appreciated that a bit, that, you know. So from current existing policies, I don't see it impacting much. I think in the talks or in the negotiations, compromises were made in terms of how to move forward.
So I understand that in the current policies, you said they will continue. But when, when it comes to new policies, do you think that democracy will rule? Because we know in the GNU, ANC has close to 159 seats, which they have a majority in terms of the whole GNU. So do you think they will have the final say when it comes to decision making?
They won't. You need a more common voice because they are vulnerable. You need more. And remember, even outside GNU, Parliament, you still have your MK and EFF also having a dominant say if you're to combine the two. So if within the GNU it's fragmented and it's opposing, it will depend on the other ones outside the GNU. So for you to form one, for you to proceed with the policy in a new government national of unit, you need to have a common ground before proceeding with the announcement. But if amongst yourself you are fighting before you go outside, you never know how the other ones who are outside the government of national unity will move within the smaller fragments.
So I think there won't be much. The boat won't be rocked too much. I think stuff like the NHI bill, it is in place. But there obviously the finances and actually implementing it, there's going to be way too much strife. So I think most of these big policy decisions are just going to be left on the back burner for now, and to let the water first has to calm down before we see any major changes. So I think for the general South African,
Yeah.
I don't think there's going to be too much of the boat being rocked at this stage of the game.
Yeah. And then touching on onto the markets then. We've seen massive.
So our rand on a purchasing power parity basis is very undervalued. But I mean, there's always like a risk premium on the fair value. So that risk premium from South Africa's side is mostly the political instability and everything. That saw our rand, knock on the door of 19 levels earlier this year. But after even before the elections, we saw some strong rand strength. During the elections, it got a bit more volatile back again. But there is still a massive risk premium on SA bonds and the rand. But now that the positive results and the fact that an agreement was made has seen this risk premium decreasing, which has allowed the rand to improve, pulling the USD ZAR below 18 rand to the dollar, which is a significant support level. Lots of foreign bondholders that left our capital markets, you've seen them coming back into the market, which has pushed down the long-term yields, which is good. But the big thing, a little bit of a worry, was when the foreign bondholders left the market. The local banks started picking up the tab. They bought those bonds. Even up until a point where the Reserve Bank was like, whoa, our private banks are holding too much government debt. That's very risky. So seeing the foreigners coming back into the capital market is very positive. It's obviously the rand will always overextend to the upside, overextend to the downside. So I think there's no in between, but the rand definitely has a potential to pull USD ZAR to the 1750 levels over the short term. Best case scenario will be like the 2022 low before the interest rate cycle of like 1650, 1670. But that's best case scenario. I think the upward drift on the rand and USD ZAR will continue. So I think it will provide an opportune time for South Africans as well to, benefit from the stronger rand. But that will obviously take a while. It takes a while for a stronger currency to filter through to the real economy. But hopefully we will see cheaper import costs, which will, help you when you go to the petrol pump, So there definitely are some positives. And just to come back to the whole, state-owned entities and things. There are positives in terms of reducing the debt there. I mean, we've seen Transnet recently being open to negotiating with the private sector. That will be very beneficial to our trade and industry, especially given the fact that Ibrahim Batau isn't coming back. I think there are definitely, in terms of trade, South Africa will see positives, which is positive for the rand. Our trade surplus, our trade balance is still in surplus. Last month it was around 7 billion rand surplus. Now we're sitting just above 10 billion surplus. So the stars are aligning nicely for the rand, especially given precious metals still elevated. So that's the story on the capital markets that I have. Capital and foreign exchange markets.
So the fundamentals, apart from the new government or this political shift, the fundamentals are pretty much the same before elections, and are pretty much favorable towards the rand.
Yeah, definitely. The only risk, like you guys say, is our first quarter GDP results were very poor. I think it was 0.4%, down from like 1.7% in the fourth quarter last year. So GDP is still very weak. That's and I mean the best thing for any South Africa in terms of getting inflation down is we need and creating jobs. We need growth. You can have as much policy this, policy that. At the end of the day, it will come down to
And my
That's still
perspective on
very
the
low.
rand, I think that the rand will remain, will further decrease on the short run. Because we know that the president is going to announce his cabinet soon. So I personally believe that the rand will break the 17 rand mark. But in terms of the long run, I believe that it will further increase the rand, maybe close to 19 or to 20 rands. Because of three points. The first one, we know that the rand is very vulnerable to external shocks. And we know that 50% of the world this year is heading to the poles, including the US, which is the major trading partners of ours. So, and the other point which I believe that will increase the rand in the long run is the influence which people believe that the South needs to decrease the interest rates. Because we currently have a huge rate, which is 8.25%, which is quite high.
Yeah.
When it's it's very high. So I believe that there will be a pressure from the public for the South African Reserve Bank to decrease the rate.
Yeah.
And the third point, which I believe will affect the rand, is the political instability. I believe that this GNU will not be sustainable.
Yeah.
So there will be
It won't
tension.
last for 5 years.
It
It's not lasting for 5 years.
won't last for 5 years. It will be political.
Yeah. So-
Basically affect our rand.
I agree with you there, Tulani.
So to Tulani's points, you are saying if we were to look at parallels
Yeah.
from a shift of the Zuma and the Renegade era,
Yeah.
and then now to the government of GNU, in the short term, there was excitement and happiness
Yeah.
in the market.
Yeah.
They were happy with that. So what do you call it? Ramaphoria.
Ramaphoria 2.0.
Ramaphoria 2.0. So you guys are basically saying that this short-term excitement is likely to be short-lived.
Yeah.
So
No, I mean, Ramaphoria, the first round of Ramaphoria took the rand to, below 12.
yeah.
So, I mean, if you weren't blinded by the Ramaphoria, you would have positioned yourself that the rand has overextended, and you would have laughed all the way. So, so caution to the viewers: don't get blinded by the optimism.
They must not get
Just
fixated.
just know that the rand is and always will remain vulnerable. And I mean, the strengthening that we're seeing now is it's yield seekers, foreign investors
Yeah.
chasing yield.
Yeah.
If they don't feel the yield is worth the risk anymore, the tables will turn very quickly. So yeah, that's the thing. And yeah, to touch like on the interest rate regime, we're seeing some very we're seeing monetary policy diverging within the major economies. The ECB, I think a very big move was ECB they cut 25 basis points to 4.25%, while the US has held. Bank of England, I think it was on Thursday this week, they opted to hold. So the dollar index, if the US holds rates like this, the dollar is going to strengthen a lot against these major economies, and that can put serious liquidity pressures on the global economy, which could force the Fed to cut. At the moment, they're expecting the Fed to cut 50 basis points by the end of this year. So, how that ties into the SOB, I think we can expect a 25 basis point, maybe
Towards the end.
near the end of this year, beginning next year. But it's not gonna be. Don't hold out for. Don't be reliant on a SOB cut
So how?
in terms of personal finance.
So it goes without saying that the U.S. federal government, the Fed, it's like attending a party and then the DJ at a party.
The Federal Reserve.
Yeah.
They
They
determine how fast we dance.
Yeah, how fast
we
we
dance.
Yeah, everyone is just at the party. Then the DJ, and you don't get to select the choice of music. It depends on the economic mood. Do they want to play jazz, slow things up? Do they want to play upbeat music? And
Now,
you know,
and as soon as they cut, it's Sister Bettina time.
Yeah.
So now people are dancing to a different tune to what they are playing on the dance floor.
Yeah,
So-
exactly, good analogy.
So it's and it plays to their currency as well. What about the Japanese yen?
Yo, Japan, the yen
Yeah.
has capitulated against the dollar this year.
So
And the yen, they're slowing quantitative easing, and the Bank of Japan has actually raised their rates a little bit. So the thing is, they can squeeze the carry trade, you know. So that's risky.
the reason why I'm asking that question is, like South Africa, why we won't be dancing to a different tune to what the DJ, of which is the flag, is currently playing is, we don't want our currency to be like that of the yen.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't want to risk that element. So I was trying to paint it up in terms of why are we still maintaining similar monetary policy stance of not cutting our interest rates, because it will be, the implications are very bad for the rand as well.
Yeah.
And
So the thing is, our CPI for May was still very elevated. I think it was still above 5%, 5.3%.
yeah.
It's still very far from the SOB's midpoint of 4.5%. So you really have the risk of, if the SOB cuts now while inflation is still elevated, that the inflation can still run away and actually maybe even reach 6% again. So I don't think the SOB has any room to cut.
Don't you think they follow the Fed's?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
No, like everyone
the
else,
US
you have to be brave to move away from it.
Looking at the US, their inflation was their CPI for May was sitting around 3.3%. So that's still very far
Yeah.
from their 2%. Their labor market stats for the month of May was very strong. The non-farm payrolls was above 270,000 new jobs added. So in terms of the US, they are the inflation is still high, but the labor market is still strong. But then on the other side, the economy is starting to turn down. The GDP is slowing down, PMIs are slowing down. So that's the other pressure
It
that's
can
happening.
influence
But
that too.
for now, I don't see the Fed. If the Fed sticks to, we need a 2% inflation target, they can't cut yet. But we'll see. We'll see if there's a major shock in the global liquidity, they will be forced to cut it. Yeah.
So, to our viewers, those were some of the fundamentals impacting our economy. So, from an international perspective, where financial markets are involved, and we're also bringing an element of elections also happening abroad that are likely to impact us. And by impacting us, we are placing much reference to interest rates, which affects the cost of borrowing, and you feel that immediately as well. And you are also talking about the rand also, which controls a lot of things. A stronger rand, leads to a favorable oil prices as well.
Yeah.
And then favorable oil prices lead to cheaper means of your main input, affordable or rather cheaper input cost. So that is favorable to your producer price index. So the moment producers find it easy to produce something in manufacturing, that's when now you don't see this general increases in prices, of which is inflation, because at the end of the day, the cheaper it is for them to produce, the cheaper it is for us to get the goods.
To get the goods on the shelf.
Yeah, so the more expensive it is, they pass it on to us as well. So a stronger rand is favorable, it's a win-win.
It will feed through to the real economy.
Yeah, it feels
Not immediately, but
Not immediately,
but
yeah.
there will be some relief there.
some relief. And we also need this consistent power supply.
Oof, that's the most important.
That's the most important thing, because it's also another factor that controls our means of production, of how easy or difficult it is to produce.
You are touching on the electricity, getting our electricity supply with the opposing policies.
Yeah.
We know the DA is more leaned towards the West. Your green energy emission targets. Whereas, as soon as we saw Andre de Ruyter leave Eskom, there was a bit less emphasis on emissions and actually getting South Africa's electricity.
Coal-fired power stations.
So that's going to be a very interesting battle. But I think the best thing for South Africa now
I think
Forget about emission targets
Yeah.
and just get electricity.
yeah, because at times, as much as we want to take care of the environment in a sustainable manner for the future, for our children, for the next generation, and the next generations. So in the short term, we have to make tough decisions. And tough decisions is that we need our coal-fired power stations up and running.
Burn the coal,
Burn
burn
it.
the coal.
Yeah, we've got the coal, we've got to burn it.
Yeah,
We've seen
100%.
Germany changing their stance on that as well.
Quickly changing the stance, yeah.
So in the short term, we need to forget about sustainability a bit because we need the economy up and running. We need jobs now. We need inflation favorable. Load shedding adds to that.
Yeah. I wonder how long I've seen on Sunbait. You can bait people. There were like baits for people to say when's load shedding gonna come. Yeah, so I don't know. I haven't seen what the bookies answer are there, but
One thing I hate about load shedding because it's permanent, or it's made us to believe that it's permanent. Even if you have power outages now, there's panic on Twitter now. People are like, load shedding is back, load shedding is back. So even though sometimes it's just poor infrastructure,
it already hits the morale.
It already hits the morale. So that's
Yeah.
how our subconscious mind has been programmed to think every little thing, even if I were to hit a transformer, unfortunately via an accident, and it affects maybe power supply on an area block, people automatically they rush to say it's load shedding.
Yeah.
But the government has destroyed that trust, right? So let's see how they manage to keep the lights up.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. That's a pretty cool one.
Yeah. So to touch base on the GNU,
Yeah, I wanted to let you guys that. Did you notice that the stock market hit the all-time record high on Wednesday when the president-elect was officially
The inauguration.
president?
Yeah, no, it was a landmark.
Lots of optimism flowing into the
but
stock. I think that if you have to look at our stock market versus other emerging markets, we was very undervalued. Very undervalued, especially versus your S&P 500. So I think as soon as the gates opened, the international funds flowed in. It will be interesting to see the sustainability thereof, which are very positive developments in London.
Yeah, but overall we have, I think our JSE All Share Index. How does it compare to overall CPI? I think it beats the CPI rate. Year on year, and it's been consistent.
Yeah, and according to Bloomberg, on the post-elections, our stock market really hit high compared to the 92 of the world global indices, which they track.
They were tracked.
Yeah.
So out of the 92, we were ranked the highest.
Yeah, we were ranked the highest after the election.
No, that's for SA comparison.
I think
massive.
I also think in the past month I also saw a chart of emerging market currencies versus the dollar. At the bottom of the pile was the Brazilian real. We also saw the Mexican peso really slip against the dollar after their elections. And at the top of the pile, the Russian ruble has been punishing the dollar. I don't know if it's currency plays are going on. And then our rand is also at second place at the moment against the dollar. So I think in terms of from an international investor, looking for spaces of growth in these emerging markets. Now that our political environment has settled down, we have a very attractive market still.
And I think also what's helping the Russians is that the stance that they are taking away in terms of their means of trade, moving away from
it's very easy to. They sidestepping the sanctions like Cheslin Kobe sidesteps English players. Like
you're bringing the rugby analogy now.
The Bucks are playing today. We have to. That's
a positive. Overall, one thing that I'm confident and proud to say about South Africa is the JSE and the stock market. It's very efficient and
And
we
we
need
are
that
seeing
performance.
gold. We are seeing prices of gold and
Yeah.
platinum and
And-
silver staying elevated.
And I think one of the reasons why, despite the political turmoil or other turmoil that we are seeing in South Africa, the resilience of our companies, and when we see even we track through the JSE as well, I think it's a positive to even the investors as well that
Yeah.
despite everything happening in there, like political risk, uncertainty, and with the new element of a GNU, I think seeing that happening and the resilience, it's a positive. I think we need that resilience as well.
Yeah. I mean, recently, like our gold and mining production results have been quite sluggish, very low.
Yeah.
Retail sales has been quite low. So hopefully, if we see retail sales picking up and mining production picking up, like looking at getting economic growth. This is how I see the best way for South Africa to get economic growth will be. The first thing is you need a sound currency, and by that I mean stable inflation.
Yeah.
That's number one. The second thing is you need to be able to facilitate trade with this currency. This
Yeah.
currency needs to be able trade. There mustn't be barriers to trade.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that South Africa still has.
Yeah.
Lots of barriers to trade, lots of labor market regulations, lots of import regulations regarding trade and industry. We had a horrible trade and industry track record recently. And then lastly, you need to be able to protect the property rights of these people that are trading.
Yeah.
Because David Rood always says there's no such thing in a free lunch in economics. The only free lunch is when two individuals can transact with each other
Yeah.
freely.
Freely.
Because both the buyer and the seller is satisfied. So seeing how the different policies
Yeah.
influence the recipe for success, well, this is my personal opinion for recipe of success.
Even that free trading that you're saying, you're still giving up something in the hope of getting something. There's still a cost, as much as it might not be monetized. But yeah, I get the analogy.
Yeah. So we are seeing some of the, in terms of the labor laws, we are seeing. I feel like Kusatu and the other trade unions got really quiet recently. They got really quiet. I don't think they have as much push and pull that they have that they recently have. In my opinion, that's quite positive, and hopefully we just see some decreased regulations on the trading industry side as well with the new government.
Talking about that, let me see. You see this your Temu or your Shein now. They're also regulating that now.
Temu.
They're saying they want to protect the local guys. So
Yeah.
but our people. So if you are saying we don't want to impose maybe barriers to entry or impose trading and maybe to bring this closer to the viewers, I think if we were to bring in your Chimu and your Shein example, is that now they were free to buy international, right?
Yeah.
The only thing that was to the advantage or disadvantage was the exchange rate. That was the only thing that they understood. But now you're bringing in a tax component, and that in its form and nature, it's regulation. So what does it do? It's going to spike the price up, right?
Yeah.
Because it's customs. You cannot come without, based on the value, this percentage, add it up.
Yeah.
So what does it do now? It forces you to do what? It discourages you in a way to look local. But local now, you don't find competitive advantage.
Yeah.
And also value for money. So this is how sometimes when we say regulations can be too restrictive as well. As much as they aim to protect, there are certain regulations which are necessary, but sometimes it just gets too excessive, whereby it just introduces a lot of bureaucracy.
Yeah.
And the ease of doing business is no longer good. So then the more it gets complicated because there are bylaws to read, to navigate, it just introduces a lot of friction in doing business. And what does it do? It also discourages what? investors to also do business in South Africa. So maybe that translates well to the viewers when we talk about how regulation can be too restrictive at times, but at times there are good regulations which governs us, but sometimes it's just too bad for us.
Yeah. So what do you guys think about the GNU affecting our trade partners? Because I know that we are currently beneficiaries to the AGOA policy.
Yeah.
And in terms of the BRICS, will you think that the DA, because they are anti-BRICS, will that affect our partnership with the BRICS?
So Mr. How do you tackle that? You've got the DA, pro AGOA, the US, and the Israelis, and you've got the ANC, now pro BRICS bloc. And so how do you unpack those elements? Because now we need those compromises in negotiations to keep things the way they are. Because as an emerging economy, we are quite dependent on both.
Yeah.
And we need favorable outcomes on both. So to manage this two, what do you stand to gain or lose if we were to choose sides? What does the other side give South Africans? What does the other side give South Africans?
And the increased political tensions globally will keep forcing South Africa, to pick a side, unfortunately. So I think in terms of capital markets, you definitely need to stay on the good side of the West, because they have the most excess saving. They are the most developed. You want their funds to flow into your bond market. The thing is, one mistake people usually make, they believe, okay, if we shun the West and only move to the BRICS, then it's okay if those bond investors leave, because then the BRICS, they can pick up the tab, like I say. But that's unfortunately not the case, because these China and India, India's the third largest economy, China the biggest economy on a purchasing power parity basis. They don't have excess funds to go and buy bonds in South Africa. They're still busy investing in their local market. So you don't wanna chase the Western money out of your capital markets. But in terms of trade partners, China is our biggest importer of raw minerals. Second is the US as well. So we have it is quite a 50-50 way of.
And the minerals, they support the rand.
Yeah, the minerals support the rand. So we want to maintain our close relationships with China in terms of exporting our raw minerals, but we have to maintain to keep the capital market steady. We have to maintain that international.
I also share Gustav's sentiments that we should play both sides. We should not pick, because we know that 68% of our GDP comes from exports and imports. So choosing a side that will be beneficial will be a disadvantage to us. And more especially, we cannot choose when we have a 32.9% unemployment rate. So we are not in a position to choose. So we need to play both sides.
Definitely play both sides. And the big thing, how these two opposing blocs, their policies and views will influence us. For me, the biggest thing, is the energy. There's a big thing from the West, from cutting emissions versus, so unfortunately, if we're going to lean to the West and be like, okay, no, we're not going to burn so much coal, what's going to happen? All of that coal is just going to get exported to China. Even Germany will buy it from us. So we really need to take our outtake, draw a firm line in the sand, and actually lean more towards the BRICS countries and be like, listen, we're gonna sustain our electricity. We're not gonna emission targets we'll do later.
As an emerging country, you cannot afford to choose a side. You need to sit on the fence and maintain balance. So hopefully the GNU, the scale is still balanced. You don't have misbalances, because it's not good. It's not good for growth, and more especially now that we need jobs, we need stable electricity. Hopefully the emphasis, first and foremost, will be economic growth. How do we get economic growth? How do we increase spending? Like, how do we improve service delivery? Because also service delivery talks to about the people and the well-being, where they stay, and also see the government improving that as well. So that they also can, find the motivation and the confidence also to to just better themselves and be happy people. Because if you are in a good environment, you look good, you feel good, and you do good. But if you're just in the townships, and there's just sewage running all over around, you don't have water for how many
Even the
days.
last time you took me for lunch here in CBD.
We went to
Yeah.
my bike.
As I got driving there, I got it's the refuse on the corner. Like it's not pleasant. Like me driving through, I was like how can your street corner look like this?
Yeah.
Now you have a shop on the street.
Yeah.
It's the small things,
Yeah.
the morality. It's
You
not.
are selling food, there's uncollected refuse, you don't know for how many days. People just lose appetite before they even come to in many ways, cleanliness.
It's not a favorable business environment, and I mean, we're talking about Johannesburg, the biggest city in Africa, and it's looking like this. What was the slogan? A world-class African city. I did not feel those vibes, unfortunately.
So this is Gustavo's experience as well when driving through Joburg. He went to Kwamai. We had fun.
Yeah. Now the chicken is good. The chicken was amazing.
You enjoyed the chicken. And we had a few beers. Maybe we'll post some pictures as we That's my experience. But yeah, we also did that because now if you lose touch with reality in terms of how these inefficiencies affect the people, you will not make sound decisions. So sometimes you need to step out of your comfort and go to where the people. Don't go when it's time of elections because it's too late. For 4 years, they've been subject to those conditions because what? You lost touch with reality. We need that. So we need, for the GNU to work, we need citizens and service delivery in mind of the people. We need sanitation. We need police visibility to do it, to work so that there's no lawlessness. We need strong stance on corruption. Let people be prosecuted. To say step aside, that's not enough. Right? We need accountability. Right? People, for every spending there must be a reason. We are tired of fruitless spending and irregular spending, as much as they call it, like corruption. We don't need that.
I always ask the question, what's the cause of corruption? The cause of corruption is having centralized power.
Yeah.
It breeds an area for corruption. So hopefully, as with the GNU, as things get decentralized, hopefully it will put pressure on the source of corruption.
Because already the LNZ has given the stance, has given a view that the GNU will likely translate to provincial and local government.
Yeah.
So the moment, it's expected, this is also one of the consequences that we are going to have a decentralized government. So hopefully within that, there's more unity and more, if you have the people in mind and service delivery in mind and how their lives are impacted. So there's no way to not work. But if you have funders' interest at play, influencing certain decisions, certain laws, protecting certain people, people higher up in certain industries, it's not going to work because at the end of the day, a government is for the people, by the people. Hence, these votes mean a lot because we decide how the structure should be.
Yeah.
So they need to work for the people. So the GNU, if it's centralized, even in corporate, they always say, always have the customer in mind. For you to sell, for you to make money, you must have the heart and the mind of the customer around your strategy and around your product and how to simplify their lives. So the government needs to do that. The GNU needs to do that. And that's what we are hoping for. And hopefully we don't see factions. We don't see a lot of divides, a lot of tensions. So a lot of division, rather.
I think, that's a good note too.
Yeah, we can work together. Already it's a rainbow nation. What can we do about it? We cannot say apartheid did that. We cannot say, now we are here. How do we move forward? We are here. People have voted. It has led to this. We are here. We just need our leaders to embrace the challenges and place the people of South Africa
No, I think I'd just like to add to that. Yeah, we'll see. I see positive developments from the election, a lot better than what I initially expected. So yeah, we'll continue to bring commentary and updates regarding our government of national unity.
That's a good talking point. Thank you guys for the insights and
Drop any more questions in the
comments.
Yeah,
Comments.
we'd appreciate that.
And mustn't forget to like, subscribe,
And share.
And we will be opening a TikTok account as well, and then maybe we'll be posting links as well, and maybe
Some YouTube shorts.
and some YouTube shorts as well. So we just need to work better on that as well. So yeah, we are able to improve on that as well. And thank you guys for subscribing, and then and hopefully for tuning in and also continuing being with us on this journey as well. And we really appreciate the time and the effort and the willingness to learn more or to look at things from a different perspective.
Yeah.
And we look forward to
Further engaging with you. Yeah.
for the engagement with you.
Thank you. Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Yes.